Hello, everybody, and welcome one and all to this, the Cult Movie Podcast, Cult Potato. As always, I'm your host, Grady, and opposite me, I have my ever-faithful, bestest friend, Dingle Doob. How are you doing, Dingle?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Dingle's really feeling it now.
Dingle's got in the groove. We're like 20 episodes in now.
Yeah. Dingle's enjoying a good Dingle day. What can I say?
And
Good day of referring to myself in the third person, which I've spontaneously decided to adopt.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dingle. You've always done that. And I expect you to do that for the rest of the entire episode. But, Dingle, what are we talking about this week? What is the cult movie that we are watching?
Today, of course, on April 1st, 2022, we are covering seminal classic film, absolute classic, your favorite movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Of all time.
This is the Disney Corporation with ties to Marvel, obviously. Their big film.
Is that like some indie studio I've never heard of?
So we're doing that then? We're doing the whole...
They also do Sharknado?
This small company you've never heard of. Yeah, Disney and Marvel, yeah, made this really... We're really doing that.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dingle.
Avengers Endgame. That's the movie that we're covering today, Grady.
Thank you for that. I'll have to look that up on IMDb. I didn't know a whole lot going into this film of exactly what we were going to be watching.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be one of those weird twisty movies that you threw me, but it was pretty straightforward action. Just balls to the wall, exactly as you'd expect, formulaic as you went A through B. Really no massive surprises through there.
Well, the massive surprise for me is that the movie just expected me to know what was going on. I mean, there was just so many characters and so many plot. I know this is a sequel, and I watched the previous one, but even watching the previous one, it's like there's so much stuff that they expected me to know without any introduction or
I think that's where I went
exposition.
Wrong because I didn't watch the prequel coming into this. I had seen it all like a long time ago, but I hadn't seen it recently, and so I came into this and I had no idea where we left off. You know, it felt like this was probably some 6-hour-long David Lynch-esque film here, and they just sort of took a hacksaw and chopped it in half and made half of it one movie and half of it another movie.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's what I thought, but I actually did some digging, Grady, and I found out that this was actually like the third season finale to the world's most expensive TV show.
Ah, is that what makes sense? I didn't know Hawkeye was that expensive.
It was, if we're being honest. But they do something weird where their episodes they go about an hour and a half to 2 hours long.
I'm gonna be honest, it really is long. Like I've watched some films recently that were like an hour and a half, and I thought that hour and a half dragged, and then like you get a 2-hour one, and you're like, okay, this is long for a film, and then they come along and they throw a 3-hour.
It's just dropping kayfabe for a bit, Grady. I'm not a big Marvel guy. The MCU is something that occupies very little of my waking brain power, and I'm not a big Marvel person, from what I know of you, I don't think you are either, are you?
That's where you're wrong. It's not my favorite movies of all time, but I've gone out and seen a good chunk of the newer ones. I haven't seen a lot of the older stuff, so actually, I'm assuming the whole kayfabe veil is dropped. We lasted 5 minutes, Jingle.
Yeah, we lasted 5 minutes, Grady. But let's be real, if we continue that throughout the entire episode, it's going to get very irritating.
It was, yeah. I agree with you, Dingle. But coming...
but we're still keeping Dingle, are we?
Coming into this, like, I legitimately didn't rewatch Infinity War. I told myself I would be fine. I remember the plot points, and then this starts, and I go, where are we? What are we doing? I don't remember.
I also did not rewatch Infinity War. I haven't. This is the first Marvel thing I've watched in a very long time. I think. Actually, no, that's a lie. What am I talking about?
Spider-Man.
I watched No Way Home. Never mind. What am I on about?
The first non-Spider-Man Marvel thing.
Yeah, because Spider-Man's really the only thing. Okay, I say I'm not a big Marvel person, and Spider-Man's all that I care about. I hate watch a lot of the Marvel stuff. Well, hate's probably a strong word.
Dislike watch.
Is ambivalent watch a thing?
I guess, yeah.
Where you're just aggressively indifferent to something?
Yeah, I can see that. I've watched a few, like, obviously the recent ones, coming into Infinity War and then Endgame. Like, I watched Captain Marvel, I watched Black Widow, I watched the Spider-Man. Haven't seen the TV shows just yet, but a lot of the older stuff like Iron Man 1, 2, Thor 1, 2, Captain America, even the first Avengers I hadn't seen. And this film, like, sometimes I'll talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, as you say, having so much required viewing before you go and watch it, but this film literally requires you to have seen every single piece of Marvel-produced television, movie,
Not
little
television,
special.
the television shows
true.
weren't out at the time, and the Netflix shows aren't. They've recently been reintroduced, but they weren't.
We're technically not canon at the point.
No, but if they are now, because from what I remember, Daredevil does show up in No Way Home, and the Kingpin shows up in the Hawkeye TV show. So
yeah, they've become canon, I guess. More so, but yeah, at this point, there is hours and hours and hours of content that is required viewing to get you in at this point, and I think that's probably biggest hurdle. Marvel don't give a damn.
No, they don't.
People still watch it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why I say that these aren't movies. It is literally just the world's most expensive TV show at this point. Like, it expects you to follow on from each movie. Like, to watch to watch the first Spider-Man MCU movie, you have to have seen Civil War. But to get Civil War, you have to watch so many other movies. Not just the other two Captain America movies, but the Iron Man movies. Ant-Man shows up, like all the different superheroes and stuff. You have to watch all of them to get what's going on, just so you can watch Spider-Man.
I made a cheap little movie poster timeline thing, which if I remember in the edit, I will put it up here. But it shows just how much required viewing there is for each thing. And yeah, as you say, there is just that many. It's Civil War, which is then Ant-Man, which is the second Avengers, which is Iron Man, Thor, Captain, which is the first Avengers, which is Iron Man, Thor, Captain, Hulk, other Iron Man. It's all over the place. And then on top of that, like if you want to watch Infinity War, you need Doctor Strange, then you need the Spider-Man one itself, you need Black Panther, you need the two Guardians, you need Thor Ragnarok, and then coming into this one, you need Captain Marvel and you need Ant-Man and the Wasp. And that's like 20 odd movies coming into this one central one, which if you were watching each of them and were so invested in it, which a large amount of people were, I can see this being this massive and amazing climax of 20 years of cinema. You know, it is the Infinity Saga coming to an end. And then for other people, when you're joining in at that point, what it actually is just giving you a long reading list of stuff to slog through before you can actually enjoy the movie properly.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me a lot of? The actual comic books. It's just like, oh, you want to know what's going on here? Well, here's a whole bunch of other stuff you need to read. Although, of course, the MCU doesn't have anywhere near that level of it doesn't have anywhere near that kind of problem yet. It's only got 10 years as opposed to like the 60, 70, 80 years that the comics have. But I feel that if they keep going, that's where they're going to...
Yeah, it's definitely somewhere they're going to go to, because, you know, we talk about all of that leading into just Endgame, which obviously we watched, and that's the entire point of this episode. But then if you're looking on further than that, and you're looking at something like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is the next big one to come out in the MCU, you have to have watched on top of all of that WandaVision, What If, the two Spider-Men, a couple of the TV shows possibly, I think. Daredevil's going to play into it. The 3 Spider-Man movies, the 2 Spider-Man movies, the 2 Venoms, Morbius, possibly some X-Men, possibly some Fantastic Four. Like, that laundry list is just getting even longer and longer and longer.
So anyway, Grady, we've talked about the film itself, but what did you actually think of this film rewatching it? Because I'm assuming you've seen it before, because judging by the numbers this thing pulled in, every human on Earth at this point must have seen it at least once. Or just the diehard Marvel fan saw it a billion times, which, judging from a lot of the posts I saw around the time this movie came out, actually might be true.
It might be. No, I saw this in cinema. I convinced my workplace to pay. So I didn't give Marvel any money. My workplace did. But
how'd you convince your work to pay for it?
I got some brain power. But yeah, it was a little weird because obviously at the time I was a little more wrapped up in it. And now when you watch it, I fully get it from the stance of like, it's a good Marvel movie. I'll give it that. But like, Marvel movie is basically its own category of film at this point. Yeah. And you can be a good Marvel movie, but a really garbage movie.
There have been a number of... I think, okay, I've made it abundantly clear. I'm not a huge Marvel fan. In fact, the older I get, the more I start to dislike them.
He's waiting for Batman.
Even Batman, I'm honestly getting tired of. So I'm not going to try to be too much of a Debbie Downer on this, alright? I'll promise you that. I'm not going to just sit here and crap all over it like we have for the past couple of films we've talked about. But, because I very recently saw this, right? I did not see this when it first came out. I saw it beginning of last year, and that was more just out of curiosity. It's like, oh, fine, I've put it off long enough, everyone's been talking about it, I'll just watch it. And watching it through the first time, I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel any real long-lasting impact from it. And watching it again the second time, it was honestly, it was kind of a slog for me. Like, it really just drag. When you don't care about it, like when you don't care about a film, it really drags.
I think the harder part as well, or like the big difference for me was that when I watched this in cinema, you know, you got the big screen, you got the punchy audio, you're there with people, you got everything going. 3 hours doesn't feel as long.
There's genuine excitement in the room as they're all watching this together. And yeah, that is something that a theater watching experience can really change how you perceive a film, especially like a big, you know, the big summer blockbusters are the kind of films you have to see in theaters. They just don't have anywhere near the same kind of impact on like a small little laptop screen in my parents' basement at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, like we still me and one of my partners sat down and watched it like on the big TV with the big sound system on the couch or whatever. It was our Valentine's Day, dating the record a little, but it was our Valentine's Day like movie to watch, and it just doesn't hold as much grandiose impact, I guess, compared to watching it in cinema.
And like just going back to what you said before about how you can have a really good, well, not a really good, you can have a good or a decent Marvel movie, but then, you know, that's pretty weak when you compare it to like other cinema and stuff like that. And it's just this one for me, I can't. How do I put this? Well, for starters, it's way too long. It's just way too long already. It's 3 hours. You couldn't wrap this up in 3 hours.
No, it's hard.
I know, and they did have a lot to wrap up. And I would honestly view this movie a lot more positively if this ended the MCU right then, because that seems like a pretty good point to end on. Whereas everything post Infinity War, with the exception of the Spider-Man movies, I feel like has been pretty weak so far.
Infinity War was a convergence point for sure. Like I've still got my little graphic in front of me, and you had to have watched every movie to get to it, and you pretty much have to have watched it to enjoy any movie afterwards. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. I've heard a lot of good things coming out of the TV series. Personally, I haven't sat down and watched any of those just yet, but I'm hearing good things about those. As you say, Spider-Man were pretty good. Black Widow and Eternals were a little lackluster to me, or just meh films. And I haven't seen Shang-Chi, which is actually probably the most well-received post-Endgame non-Spider-Man film.
Like, I think of the post-Endgame films, I think the only one I've actually watched is, actually, yeah, it is the Spider-Man, because I gave the TV shows a shot. Well, the first three they released, Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. And of those, Winter Soldier was, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier was okay. It was pretty decent, at a solid quality throughout the whole thing. Loki and WandaVision looked like they were going to be really good, until they got to I really didn't like the last episodes and how they ended. WandaVision, because it looked like it was going to be, like, this kind of, it was going for more of, like, a conceptual kind of thing, like, focusing on the family drama and the weird stuff happening in the town, going for the weird, more abstract kind of thing, and then it ended on just the big CGI Marvel fight, and it's just like, that's not really how something like this should have ended, just a big fight in front of a green screen. Loki was pretty good, I really enjoyed it, again, right up until the last episode, where I thought they were gonna go one way, and, like, they were gonna go, like, a twist. It's like, I wonder who the big bad villain behind all this is going to be. And then someone pointed out it's going to be Kang the Conqueror. He's an upcoming villain in another Marvel property. It's going to be him. And I'm like, no, they wouldn't spend this whole time without mentioning him whatsoever, just to have it to be a tease and an ad for another Marvel movie. They wouldn't do that. They would have an actual proper conclusion to something they were building to. The main villain was Kang. Spoilers for Loki, the main villain was Kang the Conqueror. It was an ad for the new Ant-Man Wasp movie. That's what the last episode of Loki felt like for me.
Yeah, it's rough, because, as we say, like, all of these are just bits and pieces to the same story, as you say, television series, that you have to kind of watch every episode of for you to understand or to appreciate. And, like, I went in watching Spider-Man, and this isn't a Spider-Man episode, but I went in not watching any of the other stuff. I'd only seen MCU Spider-Man, that's all I'd seen. Yeah. And, like, I didn't get the full experience. It's as simple and as plain as that. And with Endgame, because I didn't watch Ant-Man, I didn't get the full experience. I did not understand what was happening there until I either had it explained to me, or I read something beforehand, in the case when I went to the cinema. And in some movies, when there's this connected weave of stuff, they can do it where it's a great movie and it's enhanced by you having seen the previous viewings. Yeah. Marvel seem to do it usually in the case where it's a meh movie and it's only a great movie if you've seen everything. It's not enhanced by, it is actually required viewing.
Yeah. And I think leading up to the original Avengers, that was something that I could that was something that I could stand, because there were only like 5 movies and no one had really done that before. But now everyone's most of the cinematic universes have failed, but we've gone through this period where everyone was trying to do this with everything, and it's sort of lost its novelty for me, and now it's just really annoying, and it doesn't feel like, this is an expansive story that has so many different layers to it and so many different aspects. Now it honestly, whenever they mention another character or someone else shows up or something, it honestly feels like I'm just being advertised another movie while I'm watching this current movie.
Yeah. Talking, I guess, specifically about the Spider-Man ending, you can definitely believe that.
Yeah. Like, because, like, the thing is, because when I watched No Way Home, the second MCU Spider-Man movie, I hadn't seen Endgame yet, so I opened it up, and they're just like, oh yeah, Captain America and Iron Man are dead, and I'm just like, and I turn to my friend, I'm like, wait, what? They're dead? And he's like, yeah, didn't you watch Endgame? I'm like, no, I only care about Spider-Man, I don't care. And he was very surprised that I'd done that.
Well, like, to tie just to something you said there, where you're like, everybody's trying to do a cinematic universe, I just want to go through a couple of the cinematic universes, obviously.
By the way, before you do that, I just need to make it on record that even though I am crapping all over Marvel's one, Marvel has done it significantly better than anyone else. So for all the crap I'll give them, I will say that their movies are much better than what Grady is about to read out.
We have the Coronation Street. This is TV, but I wanted to throw in Coronation Street.
That has a shared universe.
Coronation Street, Emmerdale, Grange Hill, Brookside, EastEnders, and Hollyoaks all are in the same universe.
EastEnders is in the same universe as Coronation Street.
Yep.
What?
That's all. That's the only TV one I really wanted to touch on because we are talking about cinematic universes. You obviously got your weirder ones that are more like, X-Men when they were trying to do it, or Star Wars where they haven't tried this. It is pretty just like boom, 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 boom. And same with like Middle-earth or Fast and the Furious with Hobbs and Shaw as sort of their spin-off Wizarding World. The Lego stuff. They're sort of, I guess, just connected pieces compared to things like the Alien versus Predator universe. When that was an older one, right? And every single Alien and Predator film ever is in that same piece.
Yeah, I think it's also the same for like I think Freddy and Jason. They were also
Friday the 13th, Evil Dead, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Pumpkinhead are all technically in the same universe.
Pumpkinhead's in the same universe as them?
According to this Wikipedia
Does
article,
anyone
yes.
else even know? Does anyone else but me even know what Pumpkinhead is?
I have no idea.
I think the sequel had like Bill Clinton's brother in it. Something like that.
My favorite piece here is the Machete verse, which contains From Dusk Till Dawn, Spy Kids, all of them, Machete, Death Proof, and both Kill Bills.
Hey, Grady, it's Machete.
Sorry,
right?
Machete universe. It's a weird one. Okay.
Is that just because it has the same... I forget what his name is, but that same actor, the guy who plays Machete from all of them?
As well as Edgar McCraw. So there's two. That was their requirement, is that you had at least two characters that were previously unconnected coming together.
Danny Trejo, that was it.
Yeah.
They all have Danny Trejo in them.
Obviously the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the biggest. DC tried it. The MonsterVerse is still trying with their Godzilla and Kong films. Yeah. Sony's trying.
I will admit, even though they are kind of trash, the MonsterVerse movies are a guilty pleasure for me. I love Makaiju. Actually, and while we're on this topic of Kaiju, previously, the Godzilla universe, like the Japanese Godzilla films, that was the biggest one. That was the biggest movie franchise.
The Toho shared universe. 1954 to 1975, Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra.
Although I think, I'm pretty sure the MCU has overtaken them at this point.
Quite possibly. But before I get off of this Wikipedia article, there is one more that I want to mention, Campion, and I'm going to butcher it to all hell. It is the Toei Tokusatsu universe.
Yes! Yes! You actually got that right. The Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Metal Hero, Super Sentai. All the Japanese superheroes that Toho owns just kind of smashed into one.
From 1971 to the present, still running.
If
longest running cinematic universe.
Yes, if we're counting television shows, then yes, that is the biggest. In fact, I think Ultraman currently has the world record for the most for the property with the most number of spin-offs. Ultraman's old, and it's been on for a long time. Although
yeah.
they're actually, I know Japan, they actually are making like a big budget like live action. I say live action, all Ultraman's live action, but they're making like a big budget Ultraman movie, which I'm very much looking forward to. Maybe the same guy who made Shin Godzilla, which we should watch Shin Godzilla for this. Can we watch a good movie for once? Watch Shin Godzilla. That's a great movie.
I let you talk about Toei a little bit. That's all, okay? I gotta rip you back to Marvel at some point.
I know. From my superhero garbage back to the one everyone else seems to like, which if we're going by objective standards, probably better than Kamen Rider. So,
oof.
Yeah, but I still don't like it. So that's just me and my garbage taste, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know, that's the thing, right? How do you... when we first pitched doing this episode is like, this whole podcast is like the cult movie podcast. It's underappreciated classics that came back and had a good run. Obviously, it's April Fool's. This movie does not fit that category in any way whatsoever, but it does bring up...
literally the most financially successful movie in history, comma. Well, there's an asterisk at the end of that, but we'll get to that at the end.
And that's the thing, where we're talking about this film that is the most financially successful film, but...
Asterix.
Sorry, asterix. It's... Arguably, we're talking about it as a meh film. And so really, where does the definition of success for a film come in? And I think this is where it divides movies like... I'm getting real up in the clouds here. Divides movies like Avengers that we're talking about right now, which are financial successes, and great movies in their own rights, and people will come out and say they're their favorite movies of all time, and that's totally okay. I'm not trashing on your opinion.
And that, despite the fact that I'm trashing, I would like to point out, a lot of people obviously like this. I say that as if that's a little known fact. Yeah, of course a lot of people like this. It wouldn't have made that much money if people didn't like it. It was nominated and won a lot of awards. Okay? So...
And then we sort of separate those from the other movies we've watched coming into this podcast, where they're not big budget. They didn't make money. They were financial shithouses, pretty much. And, well, most of them. And then they got that cult following, and they rose from the ashes, basically, to still be something that people care about. And that's where I think your definition of success versus like a good film or financial stuff, there's so many different things to consider.
Yeah, because I think a good example of that is a few weeks ago, we covered Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was a disaster on release. Nobody cared or talked about it. Then a few years go by, it gets onto cable, and now it's this massive, like, iconic cultural touchstone. Like the phrase golden ticket. Oh man, that's a real, he's got the real golden ticket of being born into a rich family or getting a scholarship to Harvard. That's the golden ticket to a good life. That's a part of like regular English lexicon now. The image of Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka is an iconic image. He's an iconic character.
The Oompa Loompas.
So, yes, yeah. The Oompa Loompas themselves. Yeah, so... Usually that's the kind of stuff we would cover, and I don't quite know where I'm going because I'm meandering a bit. Save me, Grady.
It's fine. Meander's a good film. We should watch Meander. But yeah, it's just different definitions. Like, obviously, cult classic, you could shit on us for our picks of cult classics that we put on this show. You could say some of them ain't, some of them were a success, or nah, they don't have a cult following, or whatever. It's everybody's own definition to enjoy cinema, right? You can enjoy Avengers, and we ain't going to sit here and shit on you. We're not going to be pretentious people.
Well, okay, I will.
Okay, Campion.
You don't have to care what I say. I'm just some guy. You don't have to care what I say.
Dingus McFlimflam will shit all over you for it.
I mean, the stuff I like is garbage. So you're more than welcome to shit on me right back.
But like, definition of good film is never going to be able to be defined. Sure, there's films that win awards. Sure, there's films that do well financially. Asterix. But there's not a good and bad. There is not a amazing film shit video. That just doesn't exist. There's always going to be taste, and that's why when we do some podcast episodes, you might love a movie, I might hate a movie, or we come to talk about something as Avengers as a bit of a meme, but reality, it was just a way to sort of shim in this piece here about, like, big budget films being, they can be good. You know, they don't have to be bad just because they were big budget. We're not those sort of pretentious-y people. Yeah.
And at the very least, it's not a bad movie. I just think it's a particularly just kind of boring movie. But obviously, this is a film that was able to appeal to a lot of people. And I think that having, that 10-year run-up to it, with all of these films, with all these different characters that tie into it, I do think it's something on a level that hasn't really been done before. Because even though the Godzilla movies and stuff did that before, those were nowhere near on that level. And even though I do love my Godzilla movies, I will admit the MCU is consistently better than because they turned out some garbage, Grady. They turned out some garbage. Alright, not everything is Shin Godzilla. But,
Yeah, love it or hate it, coming up to, if you just talk about that Infinity Saga, those 3 phases leading up to that movie and everything that it meant, it was a massive accomplishment. It was a large amount of good movies, in my opinion.
yeah,
As you say, not all of them are bangers, but good movies.
Doctor Strange, kind of crap. Thor Ragnarok, pretty good. Really like that movie.
Yeah, and I think up to that point, it really solidified, if it didn't already, Marvel's stranglehold. Like, they own cinematic universe, and nobody can compete at this point because you are never going to reach the heights.
Yeah, and at this point, they pretty much dominate the summer blockbuster at this point. They have it down to, like, a science, effectively. Which, again, this guy kind of does get a bit formulaic. However, I know a lot of people who are into these movies are just like, yeah, look, we just kind of want something that's real, that's big and fun, that has some real great energy to it, some good visuals, and that isn't and that isn't like a trashy summer blockbuster that we can feel guilty about. Just that's sort of something that I get from a lot of people who do like these. Because while some of these movies actually do have some genuinely good points to them and some things to say, like I do think, even though it is a bit of a meme, I do think Black Panther was actually pretty good. But you know, it's they can't all knock it out of the park, and the ones that do are at least of a higher quality than your usual summer blockbuster trash. So I will give that to them.
Yeah, and the thing I want to, I guess, credit them with going forward, I know it's a big studio and it's all corporate stuff, but like, I feel like Phase 4 is almost the phase of taking chances. And that they've done a lot more stuff. Like, Eternals would have never got made if the MCU didn't get to where it is. It's not the biggest franchise piece in the world. They allowed the filmmaker to create the story. It wasn't ripped from a comic or anything, and they included a lot of diversity in their cast. And that's stuff that you wouldn't have seen if it was just Iron Man 1, 2, 3, and let's finish. That film, as much as I don't think that's a 10 out of 10 film. It did some things that I'm glad are now in the MCU or are being referenced in this big blockbuster.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to thank every movie along the way.
Yeah. And and as you said, like, yeah, as you said, the Phase 4 does seem to be the one that's taking more chances. Like, they're doing more varied and different things rather than, because in Phase 1 it was like they were pretty much the same movie back to back, like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, with the except Hulk was kind of its own thing, but all of them were effectively like the same movie, just with a few different things swapped out. They changed it up a bit with Phase 2 and 3, but now, like, because WandaVision is really, really different to everything else. It's more of like a family drama with some weird, like, mind-bending kind of stuff in there. Loki was, had like a shade of like vague paranormal detective sort of things in there. Actually, more, yeah, kind of like X-Files kind of lean to it.
And we've got the horror elements coming in as well with Doctor Strange, or like Shang-Chi is what Iron Fist should have been, and stuff like that as well. Yeah,
like I do appreciate that they are trying to do different things. Like even Spider-Man No Way Home, it's like, oh hey, let's bring back the 2 other Spider-Men from the other Spider-Man movies that the other company made. Let's join them all together. Let's have a cameo from Venom, you know, to cross over with the Sony movies. So even though like the old Marvel things do slip in every now and again, like again the big stupid CGI fight at the end of WandaVision, which it did not need. It was so good until then, Grady.
We're gonna die on that hill.
I don't think I can quite articulate to you how frustrated I am with how those 2 scenes in, because it feels like the creator had the control for all of the other episodes, but then the last one, corporate comes in and they're like, hey, this is we need you to kind of push it in this direction.
You gotta set up that House of Harkness TV series.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to Moon Knight, okay? I hope Moon Knight is just weird and dark, because Moon Knight is very weird and very dark. So I'm hoping that they go in the direction I want them to. I don't know where that point was going. I just wanted to complain more about how WandaVision ended.
That's really all you wanted to do. The whole podcast is just you complaining about WandaVision.
That's what the next April Fool's is going to be, WandaVision, so I can complain about it.
That requires us to survive till next year. But yeah, to bring it all back to Endgame, a solid meh movie if you're watching it just for the movie. And honestly, in cinema at the time, with all the build-up, having watched a lot of the pre-work, a 10 out of 10 film in the cinema experience. Not now, though.
Yeah. It's not a film that really should be rewatched, I think. I think it is better on the first try.
It's like one of those movies you kind of want to watch the 10-minute recap.
Yeah. Or fast forward to the last third of the movie. Okay, Grady. Before we close out, let's close out with a bit, because I've been crapping on this a fair bit, and I want to end on a note of positivity. What was your favourite thing from Avengers Endgame, Grady?
As much as you shit on the big Marvel fights, I quite liked the scene with everybody assembling and standing there, because that was 10 years of cinema standing there on one screen at the same time. And
as much as I've been shitting on it, Grady, that is also my favourite part of the film. Not the fight itself, but the part where the music, Captain America, he's standing, alone, the lone hero against the massive, insurmountable army. And then, a little portal opens up and the music swells and literally everyone, except the Netflix heroes, walk in all at once through there, and you have the Wakandans all coming in, shouting their war chants. Spider-Man comes swinging in. I always thought it was hilarious that the Winter Soldier just has like an M16. I think that's really funny that everyone else has all these high-tech weaponry and all these superpowers, and the Winter Soldier just has an assault rifle.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that didn't show up in like hindsight now when they make new movies going forward, but I think that was the moment, that like 10-minute scene of just people showing up and then being ready for war is the culmination of the Infinity Saga. Everything that happens after it's an epilogue. Yeah.
And I rewatch that scene every now and again on YouTube. In fact, I have the actual piece of music, Portals, on my phone. Because I'll crap on it for one thing, but if there's anything the MCU gets consistently right, it's music. They hire some fantastic composers. And I don't quite remember who did that particular track, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I guess since I am the host for the day, that means I have to pull up the facts about a budget. Yes. Oh no, I wasn't. This was the one part I didn't prepare for. Avengers Endgame. Here we go.
What you're looking for, Alan Silvestri, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, did the film score. And, by the way, can I just say, doing the score for this film must have been insane, because not only is this a colossal, ridiculously expensive movie, but he's having to incorporate music from a bunch of other movies as well. So, kudos to him.
Yeah. And so Avengers Endgame, its budget was between $356 and $400 million. Let that number sink into your head. 400,000,000.
That is an inconceivable amount of money.
I don't think that much money in $1 bills would fit in my house. That is a lot of money. But then to talk about that much money, and then you look at the box office figures for this film, and it is rounding up, $8 billion.
That's the GDP of several countries.
It is an insane number that you cannot ignore. Like, you can hate this movie as much as you want, but this movie was a success TM.
It's ridiculous how much money this movie made. And as I said at the beginning, I remember when people were like, oh, is this going to overtake, is this going to become the most successful film of all time? Is this going to beat Avatar? And then I distinctly remember that after it had finished its theatrical run, Disney extended it, and then all the Marvel fans went back to watch it multiple times just to boost it past that number. So don't get me wrong, it made a lot of money before then, but I think that may have something to do with it.
Nah. Fingal Flam, just to round us out here, do you got anything left that you'd like to say?
Yes, Grady, I do. Because, oh man, there's a lot of people in this movie. I don't know. From the Endgame, because, okay, it's obvious who my favorite is. It's Spider-Man. I really like Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland's a fantastic Spider-Man. Who is your favorite hero from the movie that shows up in Avengers Endgame?
Oh, that's a hard question. Favorite? Do you mean like the character portrayal? Or are you talking about the actor behind the role?
Let's go overall.
I'm a big Thor fan.
Big Chris Hemsworth, big Neighbours fan, are you? Or is he on Home and Away?
I don't remember.
It's he's Australian. It's one of the two.
He can just, I think, pull off more of a range than any of the other characters can. Because he's written that way, obviously, but
yeah,
it's cool. And I like his supporting cast. Heimdall, rip. Valkyrie, even Korg to a point, and then when he mixes with the Guardians at the end of the film, he just fits in really well. I think Thor is the underappreciated hero. Everybody talks about your Iron Mans and your Captain Americas. Thor's there too. Big three.
Yeah. Although if we're being honest, Ragnarok had a lot to do with that.
That's true.
It gave Chris Hemsworth a lot more to work with,
really
other than big man with hammer.
But yeah, that is the episode then. Did you have any closing words you wanted to put in? Because we're running time.
Yeah, for as much as I crap on this, as much as I'm not a Marvel fan, I'm still gonna check it out every now and again, because, I mean, people talk about it all the time, it's out of curiosity, it's just I gotta, what are you doing? I just want to know. As I said before, I'm quite looking forward to Moon Knight. I'm hoping that it's really good. And Grady, I'm gonna ask you a question to give you a bit of time to think. But, I just want to know, what Marvel thing you're looking forward to? What?
Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, that was quick. Okay. I was just going to finish it on with that, it earned $2.7 billion, which means that it is technically the highest grossing film of all time. But adjusted for inflation, Gone with the Wind made... Hang on.
He was always going to do this. Flim Flam can just never let Marvel win.
No, I can't. Sorry.
He wasn't even prepared to do this. He really wanted to dunk on Marvel, and then his computer crashed, and he lost all of the facts that he was going to use to dunk.
Everything.
Start dunking faster, buddy.
It's worldwide. Would have been $7.4 billion for Gone with the Wind.
But guess what?
Adjusted for inflation.
Nobody cares about Gone with the Wind. It's Avengers, baby.
Well, I'm sorry, my dear, but frankly, I don't give a damn.
That feels like he just quoted an old film at me, so I'm just gonna run away.
I'm quoting Gone with the Wind, Grady! It's one of the most famous movie quotes of all time. You don't know it?
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of the Cult Potato.
Was so cool and you didn't get it!
Cult Movie Podcast. We were reviewing this amazing film from little old publishers Disney and Marvel. It was Avengers Endgame. Next up, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. I believe it is Puff and Stuff coming on up for you. Back on the schedule. You got any last words, Flim Flam, other than yelling at me?
Tune in next year when we cover Gone with the Wind for April Fools.
Please no. I just remember back to the first episode where you didn't have a sign off. Do you have a sign off I was meant to steal here?
I don't know. I've been changing it every episode. So.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time. For the Lexicon of Lore, this has been Cult Potato, Grady and Flim Flam.
Peace out. See you all next time.
Oh, we'll see you all next time. I'll mute his and I'll put mine over the top because I'm the host this time.